You're listening to Freight Famous, presented by Rose Rocket, bringing you the people that make trucking move. From behind the scenes into the limelight. Here's your host, Justin Bailey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Freight Famous, a podcast produced by Rose Rocket. Before I introduce the show today, I'm excited to tell you about Rose Rocket's TMS referral program. If someone you know is looking for a TMS, Rose Rocket would love to have you join our incentivized referral program. To learn more, email us at referralpartners@roserocket.com, and a member of our team will be sure to be in touch. I'm your host, Justin Bailey, co-founder at Rose Rocket, and I'm really excited to have you listen to this show today, where I interview Chace Barber, the CEO of Edison Motors. So, Chace and his co-founder, Eric, they started their own trucking company in their fourth year at university, hauling logs. And during that time, they basically started rebuilding a 1969 Kenworth truck because they found the new trucks to be too unreliable. Fast forward many years, they transitioned from hauling to installing electrical generation systems and designing, engineering hybrid diesel electric power systems. Look, at the end, what these guys have done is they've built a truck in Chace's parents' backyard on a dirt floor that is fully hybrid, about to move into production, and they're showing it this weekend. It's a crazy story from some northern BC guys who have just taken 150-year-old technology and transitioned into a hybrid truck that, according to Chace, at opportunities when they're logging, will actually have zero fuel usage. You got to listen to this show. I've not interviewed anybody quite like him. It's kind of hilarious. So enjoy. Chace, thanks for being here.
Oh, you betcha. Thanks for having me here.
Okay. So listen, man, I've actually just been briefed on what you've been doing. I read the brief. I had to read it like 3 times. I'm like, no way. So tell me about how you started building. Just tell me about everything. How did you start this?
How did we start building electric trucks?
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's a long story. Well, I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. But we've been a trucking company for about 8 years, hauling logs, and I was always kind of interested in electric. And when Tesla came out with their Tesla Semi, I reserved that like at the announcement. I was the 4th person in Canada to actually reserve a Tesla Semi. And basically, long story short, after 4 or 5 years of waiting and not getting the electric Semi there, I said, fuck it, give me my money back, I'll build my own truck. And that's kind of what started Edison Motors.
Okay, so look, man, I'm an entrepreneur and I built stuff, but the idea in the scope of like building how do you have the knowledge to even do that? Like, how do you know where do you start? Like, how does someone just do that?
I don't. I'm dumb. I just found some really, really smart people that could figure things out. And we looked at it, and like the sawmill in town was using a Laterno log loader. I don't know if you know about the old Laterno log loaders, is that they were electric hybrid machines. They're using a loader built in 1967 that was hybrid. So the mechanics in town knew how to work on these hybrid things from the 1960s. So we're like, okay, well, we can probably ask them and ask if we can see how that truck worked. And we started looking around and we found some talented people. And one of the things is like the whole company kind of went viral on social media. And with that, a lot of people have been like, hey, I'm an expert in this, or I'm an expert in that. I'm an expert in suspension. I'm an expert in batteries. I'm an expert in electric motors. And okay, perfect. Come on board. We'll talk with you. Let's take your expertise. And we've kind of there's been over like 120 people now that have worked on this truck. And I've always said, I'm not smart. I just listen to what smart people say, and we go with that.
You're making it sound so awesomely easy. So
it's not hard. Electric's actually pretty simple. Power flows in. You got 3 wires. You connect the wire, negative, positive, the 3 legs, and like power goes in, power goes out. Electrical's actually really simple. Like, have you ever opened up like an 18-speed gearbox and looked inside one of those things?
I can honestly say I have not.
Oh, they're a nightmare. If you Google like an 18-speed, that doesn't make sense to me. Like, if I look inside an 18-speed and there's shafts and counter shafts and bearings and gears, I'm like, oh, no, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Electric is actually pretty simple. This wire goes to, I got a negative wire and a positive wire. Like, electric is pretty simple.
Okay. So tell me about the truck. So you're building again, I am not, this is kind of a hilarious conversation. By the way, for like listeners, if you're listening, we, and a lot of our listeners are American. Chace is what a real Canadian sounds like. So there's like, you kind of say like, oh, I've got like, this is the accent that even as a Canadian myself, that I don't get to have. This is like
that Western Canada accent.
It's just the pure play. This is the Canadian accent. And so, yeah, like listen well. Okay, so I want to just go through this for a second. So you started restoring like an old truck.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was just a restoration project. Was that part of this, or that was just like you wanted to do that as a thing to do?
Well, we were doing that before. So a little bit of background. There was more to the story, but we started a trucking company and we bought a 1969 Kenworth for $4,000. Truck and trailer, logging truck. We put that to work and we bought another truck and we bought another truck. And it was a newer truck, like 1 year old, 2 years old. That piece of shit was in the shop. We had it for 6 months. It spent 3 months going back into the shop. This sensor issue, this issue with the EGR, DPF, not like whatever. It always had a problem. I eventually just walked back in and like, take this thing back. And what we started doing was remanufacturing old trucks. So taking a truck, basically stripping her down to the frame rails, putting in some air ride, rebuilding the motor, new transmission, just rebuilding our own trucks, which we found to be really reliable because we just built trucks without planned obsolescence. Like there's a reason. The old boy I bought that 1969 Kenworth off of, bought it brand new in 1969 when he was in his 20s. He drove that one truck until he retired in his mid-60s.
Wow.
He bought it, and then we bought it off of him. So a second owner. I bought that truck. We were kind of in university broke, but I bought it for like that $4,000. Spent another $10,000 fixing it up. I was into it for 14. In 8 years of running that log truck, I put about $3,000 in parts. So 8 years of running this truck with 4.5 million kilometers on it. I'm like, they were just built different back in the 60s. So we just started building these old trucks and running these old things. And that's kind of what led to like, well, we can build a truck and we can probably figure out the electric thing. So
then what is the manifestation of this? Then so what do you have? Like what is this now? Like in terms of a commercially able piece of equipment? Is this hauling freight now? Is it still in prototype? Like what's the stage and where are you today?
Yeah, we just finished what we call the first production prototype. So that first truck we did was a proof of concept, and we used a 1962 Kenworth, old LW needle nose. And that worked okay. I'll be honest. A few things sucked on it. The driveline kept snapping due to the electric torque. It was just too much torque. So the next one we changed up to the design. We went to E-axles. We redesigned some of the cooling. And now we have a truck that can actually go out and do a job. Is it perfect yet? No, we're going to refine it over some partnership deals. So we're doing some partnership deals right now with 5 trucking companies that we're going to build a truck for next year. They're going to integrate these trucks into their fleet, tell us what they like, tell us what they don't like, let us re-engineer it back, and then we'll proceed with public sales.
How do you think about producing in it must take, this would be, I don't even have to guess because I just basic math and economics would tell me that the capital required to produce at even a modest scale would probably be pretty significant. So how do you, not really.
No.
Tell me.
Okay, a lot of people don't know this in the trucking industry, especially Eastern Canada and the United States, about like the Kenworth C500, Western Star 6900 XD tend to not be sold. Like I went down and talked with Kenworth down in Connex in Vegas, and I'm like, we were talking about the replacement. As Kenworth was phasing out their W900, and they're going to the W990, the wider cab. I said, well, what are you doing with the C500? C500, a lot of people don't even know what that model is. It's the Kenworth with the steel fenders, the steel hood, like what you see in the oil patch or heavy-duty logging. And he said, we don't sell any of those anywhere outside of BC and Alberta. 98% of all the C500s made get sold to Western Canada. But what a lot of people don't realize is that they're so custom that the C500, they were quite proud of it. It was still built by hand. They're basically bay-build trucks, slight assembly line, but they're like those 6900 XD that Western Star discontinued was built in a dedicated shop where they could build these trucks by hand. So it's not built on an assembly line. Like, yeah, we can't compete with a Freightliner Cascadia.
Sure.
They're $150,000 trucks.
Yeah.
I got a build sheet for a Western Star that showed 500,000 US. Like, they're $700,000 trucks.
Wow.
They're built by hand. They're built tougher. You're looking at things like triple frame rails, double half-inch frame rail. Like, they tri-drive, tridem steer. Like, they just get so custom. And that's a problem with that super heavy spec, heavy duty, heavy customized vocational, is that these trucks are so custom that they can't build them on an assembly line. Because if you're only going to sell 200, 300 C500s a year, well, that doesn't make sense to dedicate an assembly line. Like, oh yeah, we're going to sell one tri-steer truck this year.
Right.
But how many tri-steer trucks do you see?
Right.
Almost none.
Right.
So we're not going to dedicate an assembly line to it. So we'll bay build it. So we can compete in that, because if we target that heavy vocational market, which is what we know, being loggers and that, we can build these trucks by hand and still be relatively competitive with some of the other companies out there.
Interesting. So that's actually that's a point that I didn't probably appreciate. So this is meant to be not a mass-produced piece. This will always be sort of special. Do you have like ambitions for it to be more of a mass-produced or generally accepted product, or is it thinking that this will stay more of like a niche offering?
I would love to make it more mass-produced. I think it's great technology. We're showing massive fuel savings. I think it's a technology that makes sense to get it in. I'd love to be able to get it into more people's hands. We're building this thing at what I believe, like, no planned obsolescence, right to repair. It's things that I believe should exist a lot more. But let's be honest, it takes years to set that up, and we probably have to go to the market, IPO, raise serious funds. But the best way to start is compete in that market where it doesn't require the big assembly line. And then if we build, say, 40 trucks a year, well, that's easy. We can refine our product in those 40 trucks, work really closely with those truck buyers and initial purchases to redesign and rehome it. I think a lot of the problem with EV companies is they want to grow really quick, really fast. Hey, we built one prototype. Give us the money to build a production and assembly line, because that's the markets they're competing in.
Right.
Give us the money, build a bigger thing. But now what happens when you invest hundreds of millions of dollars into building a production and assembly line, and you find out, oh, this part kind of sucks and we're having issues with it. Now we need to retool, redesign, re-engineer it, which means we've already spent the money on an assembly line. Now we have to make these big changes. Now it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars to make these changes. We have to shut assembly lines down. We're burning through money and capital. Where if you start in that niche truck build market, you can start small. You build 40 trucks a year. Well, if I got to go change 40 trucks in this part, that's no big deal. Rather than changing 1,000 truck part, I got to change 10 truck parts. The assembly line, it's a custom bay built assembly line. Well, that's easy. I just tell Dan, the mechanic, hey, Dan, we're not putting that part in anymore. We're putting in this part. This is the way you got to do it. I got to talk to one or two guys. And then you can refine that product. So maybe 5 years. Then we can start raising some money in the capital markets where it says, hey, it's working. We've proven it. These are the issues we've fixed. Okay, now let's scale this up. Now let's look at a little production line. Let's look at expanding that a little bit more. And I think that's a better business strategy long run. It's slower growth, but it's consistent.
To fleet owners, what are some of the advantages or really nice features, I guess, that you're finding in the trucks that you're producing? So you talked about they're more efficient. Maybe let's talk specifically about like what are you pitching? What's the sales pitch on the trucks?
Fuel savings is a big one.
Yeah. To what end?
Well, you look at logging. That's one of the prime ones. Is in BC, you're going. All the logs are at the top of a mountain. You're going up empty, burning very little power to go up, and then when you come down, the regenerative braking recharges the batteries. You go to the mill. You fire up the generator and the hybrid maybe an hour a day. Like you could be looking at 80% fuel savings.
Right.
Ideally, theoretically, on the perfect haul, you could go with 100% fuel savings. And then you look at things in stop and go city driving, where you got something heavy like a gravel truck that's doing a 14-hour day, 12-hour day every day, but it's stop and go and it's moving 100,000 pounds of dirt. And it slows, every time it slows down for a light, it regenerates the power, and then you have immediate torque, no gears, and you have high acceleration back out of the light. So you're not grabbing gears and starting in the basement every time. You're taking advantage of the efficiencies, because on a normal truck, every time it shifts, it loses its boost, then it brings it back up, it soot lows the exhaust, brings it back up, and then just enough torque to shift the next gear, lose its momentum, start slowing down to reapply it, whereas electric motor is smooth, consistent power away from it. Plus, then your generator's running at 1 RPM. it's only running half the time, and because it's just meeting average load instead of peak load, like the reason you put in a 15-liter diesel is peak load demand. It takes a ton of power to build that initial inertia. That's why you have a 500, 600 horsepower Cummins in there, because you got 140,000 pounds, you got to get up to speed. It takes a ton of power to get it up to speed. Once you're actually cruising, it doesn't need that much power, but you need the big engine. So you're running a 15-liter engine, but you only need a 15-liter engine 5% of the time. So the generator, the batteries meet that peak load demand because they're 4C rated batteries, which means I can pull 1,200 horsepower out of those batteries for 15, 20 minutes. And then the generator just fires up, and instead of having 15-liter engine, we're going down to 8, 9-liter engine, and it's just maintaining that battery. So plus it's running at 1 RPM. So the efficiency gain is huge. Like we were showing with our testing, like on our truck there, a 50% reduction in fuel consumption. On a logging truck that's in BC where it's $2 a liter, for Americans, that's about $9 a gallon for fuel. A truck's burning $15,000 to $20,000 a month. You save 50% fuel, that's $7,000 a month. That makes your truck payment just in your fuel savings. So that's obviously a huge selling feature.
Yeah.
Then you have other issues. There's no driveline. It has E-axle, so you're not going to blow out drive lines. You don't have the issues with automatic transmissions or teaching people manual transmissions. It's just smooth. Like I've driven it. It's nice, smooth torque. Other advantage is power. On a tri-drive configuration, I can put 1,000 horsepower to the ground. Like 1,000 horsepower because I'm not limited just by that motor and the peak torque. On a tri-drive, on a tandem, I'm putting out about 700 horsepower to the ground. Like it's a beast. So power for loggers, hold back, regen. Like we're talking with one licensee, like a logging company, a sawmill company, and they're talking about their blocks. Well, if you have more power and they're looking at, well, what if we put a electric axle on the trailer so the trailer can help push and the trailer can well, now we can get into steeper blocks. So we can access.
So what's a block?
A block is what you call the area you're logging, like a block of wood.
Okay,
like
got it. Okay, yeah.
Your timber farm or whatever.
Got it.
If I was going to go out on this block, now a lot of the times they heli log blocks that are too steep. Well, I got to go in there with a helicopter. Now I'm paying $3,000 an hour for a helicopter to grab 1 or 2 logs at a time and bring it out there because it's too steep. Well, if I have better holdback or more horsepower, run flat tires, I can now access timber that was heli only with truck access, which means that I can get into more accessible timber that wasn't logged before, and that's going to bring in extra revenue from that. So that was a big selling feature. And then we were talking with like a concrete mixing company, and one of their big advantages was there's a lot of cities that have noise bylaw. No diesel engines after 9 o'clock at night. Well, we can run 100% off batteries. And then, so basically, as they get close to where the noise abatement zone is, they shut off the generator, they run in on batteries, they unload their concrete on batteries, they cruise out on batteries, and on their way back to the batching plant, the generator fires up, recharges the batteries. So because they're not running diesel generators, they can run that batching plant and that concrete pouring operation 24/7 a day, which is huge in the concrete world, as you want to just constantly keep pouring. So that was another sales thing that we didn't even realize until we started talking to some of these people.
Right.
Other people that are working electric. We got an electric PTO. That's why we like that heavy vocational thing. It's absolutely insane that you're running a 600 horsepower, 500 horsepower diesel engine, taking off from that a 50 horsepower hydraulic pump. So you're running a 500 horsepower engine to take off 50 horsepower of thing while you're working on site. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's like the stupidest efficiency you can have. So we can run off the batteries, and if you're running 50 horsepower out the batteries, you could work for 8-9 hours off those batteries, which means that now that truck working on site, say like a crane truck on like a wire lining job that's just holding a wire line or holding something like just crane, some little bit of light use on site, it can now work on site quietly. Now there's no noise pollution on site. It's easier for the operator to talk to the swampers or the riggers or the other people working on site. It lowers the noise level, makes a safer work environment. So that's another thing that these companies have approached us and been like, hey, we really like that aspect.
Right.
And then there's all the government regulations that say, yeah, like bidding on a job. There's a lot of jobs now that 5% of your fleet must be electric to bid on this job, or you get an extra 10% on your contract if you meet certain, but they're saying like they're looking at it in the world and saying, well, full electric doesn't do the job. You can't just, I don't have the battery to run it. Like this truck needs to run 14 hours a day, 12, 14 hours a day. That battery's only going to last me 4 hours. What do I got to do? Buy 8 trucks to do the same job?
Right.
So with the hybrid approach, they can still get that electric, that hybrid, meet those things. So there's kind of, our customers have been telling us what the advantages are, which has been kind of nice. We're learning as we go here.
And that was kind of I was giving you my question about just in my own general ignorance about why, what's the difference or why not go full EV? And is that just basically battery technology just isn't there? Is that really the short answer to that?
There's a twofold answer. The first one is the battery technology isn't there. So on a logging truck, you still need 2.5 megawatts of power per day for a logging truck to get through a day. Almost 3. You would need 3 megawatts in battery. You use 2.5, which means your battery capacity needs to be 3 megawatts. So the biggest battery on the market is a Tesla Semi, and they haven't really released their battery size, but it's like 800 to a megawatt. So you need 3 times the size of batteries of a Tesla Semi to get a logging truck in Canada through the day. You need to pack around 50,000 pounds of batteries. That's your cargo. To be able to move it. Like, what are you going to haul anymore? You put one branch on it with your batteries, and you're like, it's just not feasible with batteries. The other thing is grid infrastructure is a big issue. The amount of power these electric vehicles use and these trucks use. Just take logging trucks in BC. There's about 5,000 logging trucks in BC. It's a niche market. But they all come home, they all plug in. Each one uses about 2.5 megawatts of power per day on average. At 5,000 trucks, that's 12.5 gigawatts of power. To put that into perspective, the Site C dam only has a 1.1 gigawatt hour capacity. The logging trucks use 12 times, just logging trucks will use 12 times as much power as a Site C dam, which has cost $20 billion and 15 years to build. If you were to extrapolate that and you had enough trucks, you would have to flood an area of land like the size of Wales. Or something like I did the math. It was like an insane amount. You're like, full electric isn't going to work unless we massively start doing our power infrastructure upgrade, even if we had the charging, even if the battery technology was there. But I like that hybrid approach because it's a nice transition. It's like the Toyota Prius led the way to the Tesla.
Yeah.
And maybe why is the trucking industry trying to skip that hybrid step? Like they're trying to go right full BEV.
Yeah.
Whereas other industries have been running hybrid vehicles successfully for a long time. Like every freight train you see pretty well is diesel electric. They got a diesel generator to electric drive motors, the old Laternos. The Cat haul trucks, diesel electric, they're hybrids. Like for moving heavy weight and big load, like industry's already proven that hybrid is incredibly efficient, but I don't know why the trucking industry wants to skip it and go right to BEV.
So I have a hybrid car and it has to plug in. These assumingly have to plug in as well. They just don't require the same amount of charge. Is that why it's not such a infrastructure challenge?
Yeah, they don't have to plug in. You can plug them in, but they don't have to.
Because they will generate with and the same thing with the car. If we drive the car a certain distance, it'll charge itself basically from the engine, right? So same idea. So what you're talking about is it's a really interesting concept. And I've spent a good amount of time in BC, and thinking about. I've never been in a logging truck, but you can see just how precarious those are and how steep those hills would be. So yeah, you can totally picture the weight behind those. And this is I just want to, and anyone listening to this and who's listened enough knows me well enough to know that this is way beyond my technical capacity, what we're talking about right now. But in my mind, I still can picture and conceptualize how that would charge itself. Sort of I can almost picture like toys I used to play with, almost like charging as the weight comes kind of behind it. So it's fascinating, actually. This is super, super interesting. I didn't appreciate as we started talking how thoughtful you were about market entry. Because we're talking a lot about the very, very specifics about the truck, and but I think there's a really smart way about thinking about going at like building your MVP. Basically, this isn't that different than building a software company in many ways. Like build something that people want, try it out. Build it small so you can get really tight feedback loops, iterate, get a bit bigger, and keep, rinse and repeat and keep going, right?
Exact same as it. Yeah. That's the principle.
And that's really no different. It's really a really refreshing way to think about, because and I love it because I really did jump to the idea, because I think about this massive EV companies that you've seen kind of come and go, honestly, in the last, not even that long period of time, last 4 years, basically, right?
Yeah.
And maybe not totally go, but they're on their way, zombied, right, in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, but because to that exact point, it was like, we think we have something, let's mass produce this thing. And just the costs of that are so intimidating. How like, where are you building these things? Like, where's this happening?
Behind my parents' house.
I love that answer. I love that answer, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not going to lie, we're loggers. We built the first truck. We didn't even have a shop. We just did it in like literally my parents' backyard in a field. And with the next truck, we raised a little bit of money and I built a tent. I went to Ritchie Brothers auction. I bought an old, like a tent shop for like $4,000. And we built the next ones in like some tents on a dirt floor. But like, fuck it.
Yeah. And where are you? And are you still on the dirt floor in the backyard?
Oh, yeah.
You still are? Yeah.
We can fit like 4 trucks in that big tent.
Yeah.
It's a good sized tent.
Yeah,
Like, she's a big tent. It's a nice tent.
Yeah,
but like,
no doubt.
you don't need, like, I see way too many like startups and they spend a lot of money and a lot of capital before they start seeing revenue on really fancy offices and like things. And it's like, okay, but like, you're pre-revenue.
Yeah.
You're really gambling on this. Like, I bought a tent for cash.
Yeah.
Everything we have done with cash. Like, we've carried literally no debt at all. Personal, company debt. And that means building it on a dirt floor. Fuck it.
Yeah. How many people are working there now? Like, tell me a little bit about the business today. And like, what are you trying to do in the next few months here? Like, where are you at?
Okay, there's about 20 people that work on this truck or for the company. And we got some other side projects we work on. We do a lot of like hybrid power systems, not in the truck, but we do off-grid stuff for like communities. Actually, we just did one in Ontario here last time we were there last week. There was an island that grows sorghum on a farm out in Lake Ontario, and they were running 100% diesel. Same truck principle applied. We just applied to offshore power. Huge peak power demands like a truck. So what we did was we optimized that with a battery. Put in a battery. The battery took the peak power demand. You can take a 100 kilowatt generator and you can downsize that to 30. We've done this for a few communities or farms, and you downsize it or you keep the existing generator and run it. So we're doing a lot of those kind of hybrid systems, and that brings some good money in. And we've been manufacturing now these little solar light towers we have with a deal with CAT. We made some solar light plants, and that was a little side thing. So
that's keeping you busy.
It's keeping us busy. It keeps a few guys working, keeps the money coming in, and we can do things with cash, and I like that.
And then what's the phase you're at now with the truck? Because I understand you're here to like, you're doing a reveal this weekend. Like, what's going on like with what's happening there?
We're working with our development partners, we're calling. Trucking companies that are taking a truck, and we're going to work with them, see what they need, go over the specs, meet with their mechanics, bring their mechanics out to the shop, have a look at it, see what they like, they don't like. Then we're going to build their trucks. They'll integrate them into the fleet, and they'll do that. And right now we're here. We're showing them off the truck this week. We've got a big public event on Saturday that we're bringing some people out to. And then we're also sending the truck out to testing facilities, which are all in Ontario. Ontario's like the vehicle manufacturing hub, so testing facilities are all out here. So we want that hard data on the truck. So we brought the truck out here to...
And the testing facilities have to sort of certify. This is the official certification of like, I don't know, things like horsepower. Is it like,
put it on the dyno, get them to do fuel consumption tests. So it's not just be like, totally listen to me, guys. I'm totally 100%. This is my fuel savings.
100% fuel savings.
No, just take my word for it. No, like, we'll get the actual thing, and then we'll get the hard numbers, because we've got the engineering numbers for what the manufacturers of the axle say they can, but like, let's put it on the dyno. Let's pin it up to a trailer. Let's do the load. We want to see that generator fire up and discharge the batteries, recharge the batteries. What happens when it goes through multiple cycles, on, off, and they can hook up to the BMS. They can watch the individual cells for heating, cooling. How is our heating and cooling doing? Let's simulate a hot environment, a cold environment. Like, some places have giant warehouses you can put these trucks in, and they'll bring it down to minus 40 below in a controlled environment and see how it does. So like, that testing data is going to be great as we work for these next 5 trucks.
So this is going to maybe sound like a dumb question. It might be a dumb question, but I want people to appreciate how far the distance is from where these trucks are being manufactured to where we're sitting today. How'd you get the truck here?
Put her on a low bed.
Yeah, that's what I wondered. So I thought you were going to say drive it. So
no.
Cool. It wasn't that dumb of a question. Yeah, okay, good, got it. Could you drive it here?
I mean, theoretically we can, but I mean, we just built this truck like 3 weeks before shipping it out.
Yeah,
we're like, maybe the big test shouldn't be a cross Canada road trip.
Yeah.
because like we've shown everybody how we built the frame rails. I'm quite proud of the fact that we built this in a tent shop. We show that we built this on a dirt floor. We show where the batteries go, how we install the batteries, how everything works on this truck, how we built it. Like, so if people really want to go into like the nitty-gritty details, they can watch those series, and you can actually go back and like watch the entire progression of the company in like real time on social media. And that's kind of a cool thing, because like people can follow along as we win and as we lose. Like, we've shown things that we failed at, and we've shown things that we win at. It's kind of a cool story.
Yeah, this has a bit of like a Canuck American chopper vibe to it almost. Like in my mind, I'm picturing. I know it's, but it's like this like I totally get the narrative. And I get why people like it, and like why are people trying to help?
I don't know exactly why people want to help, but I'm super grateful. But it's one of those things where it's like we're just trying to do it, and we're trying to be honest in the thing we're doing. I think it's because, like, hey, we show where we're struggling. I'm like, those frame rails. I'm like, where the hell do I find brand new frame rails? Calling up original OEMs. And, like, And then, someone from that OEM's like, hey, I heard you're looking for frame rails. This is who we use for our frame rails. Call them. Yeah. They'll help you out. I think it's also because, like, they're super willing to helpful because we're a couple guys building on a dirt floor.
Right,
we're
exactly.
not a serious threat. And
right.
We're entering this heavy spec vocational market. Like Western Star discontinued that truck. They won't even make it anymore. Right. And we're like, hey, we want to build this truck. And they're like, yeah, we don't even make any truck in that market. Even if you guys do get to production on your dirt floor, you're entering a part of the market we're getting out of. So we'll help. Like
right. So so it just seems like there's a lot of enthusiasm, and like it's almost like you're crowdsourcing this in some ways, right?
Where 100%. This truck has been crowdsourced from the ground up. Like even the funding we raised. Yeah. When I did social media, where we got it, because we spent about $1.5 million on this truck and the engineering development. Sure. Like it's expensive to build these things. Yeah. The money came from truck drivers and people that were like, I said what the idea was, and we built our first proof of concept, and I said, hey, I got to change these. I got to improve it. We need to raise a little bit of money. And within 6 days, we raised $1.5 million. And anybody that put in over like a couple grand, I'm like, are you sure? Yeah. Like, you sure about this? I want to make sure. That and talk and see what they like, what they want, didn't like, and like what we can make. And I learned a lot of great things. Just our own private crowdfunding platform. And like 90%, 95% of all the people that supported us were truckers. They either owned a small trucking company, owner operators, company drivers that are like, I like what you're doing. I want to support you. So like it's been crowdfunded, and some people have been like, hey, I want to support you. Hey, I'm an expert in this. So like this entire project has been crowdfunded. There's been about 130 people that have worked on this project, all different experts in different little sects or different little things. And we crowdfunded an electric truck. Like I say, I'm not qualified to build an electric truck. But I now know people who are.
Well, you crowdfunded, but then you crowdsourced it, as you said earlier. So you crowdsourced the ideas. So you got you've got the feedback on like, where do we get this thing? How do we get this stuff? You've had people who want to help you because you guys seem authentic and vulnerable in a sense. Like, like I said, we're on a dirt floor trying to compete in a market that no one wants to be in. And it's this honest. It's a really amazing story, actually, man. I'm really rooting for you here, buddy.
Oh, thanks. And I mean, we're trying to, like, I'm more even trying to like build trucks. I'm trying to just bring some change to the industry because I don't like where certain things are going. I think that resonates. Like I'm tired of all these electric vehicles where they're trying to hide it and be like, oh, it's some mysterious thing. Don't look inside, and be like, well, like it's high voltage, and they're trying to act like it's super. Like sawmills and manufacturing equipment have had high voltage electricians since the 1900s, 1800s. Like, I'm sorry, but if you work on a 3-phase electric motor in a sawmill, you know, if it's got capacitors or anything, you're used to dealing with that, you can work on this truck. It doesn't need to be complicated. You can have right to repair with these things. I'm tired of having $500 turn signals. I want $40 turn signals we used to have. Simple parts, simple things. And I think that's been like a big change we've really been trying to promote in this industry is like you can build these trucks using existing parts. You can build them by like our team of mechanics is nothing. We're a bunch of loggers, little industrial electrician and that. And like that was enough to build it. And we've been showing like, hey, this is how you build it. This is how you work on it. This is how you service it. And like that's one of our like key ethos to showing people these things. And I think that's why it's like, hey, electric vehicles aren't scary. Electric vehicles can be worked on. They can be serviced. You like yeah, you need a little bit of special knowledge. You need an industrial electrician, but they exist.
Yeah. That I think is just an enormously powerful flashpoint. I think that idea is a throwback model, and this idea of things last and you could fix it yourself, and the feeling of like electric cars, like you look at like just from a car perspective, like I don't even know where anything is. Like I don't know what it is, and I wouldn't even know. I don't even know where the hood or the trunk is. Like you don't even think about. Like you're like something's wrong. Take it in. Don't even look at it. This is complicated. This requires a whole new set of standards, set of people, set of expertise, all these other things, and it's friggin' intimidating, right? But like this concept of like it's a full throwback. I love it, man. I think it's just this is just great, and I'm totally like,
it's not complicated. It really isn't.
That's such a refreshing.
You have power lines that
narrative.
come from a generator. Generator goes to batteries to electric motor. There's just wires, and then you have an inverter in between this, which is the AC of the DC.
Yeah.
So but that's not complicated compared to like a transmission of power.
Right.
And like you look at it's not. This stuff is simple, and we've been trying to show people like you don't need to be afraid of this electric transition.
Yeah.
I kind of think that these big companies are trying to make it seem super scary and don't look and you can't open that cover and you need a special technician and all that. Like, there's some scary high voltage.
Yeah.
There's things on the truck that can kill you.
Yeah.
But you want an industrial electrician that's familiar with working with high voltage, can deal with these things. Lockout, tagouts, disconnect, make sure the power is de-energized. There's standard operating procedures in a sawmill or anything like that. I think a lot of them are trying to do it because they're realizing they can make big bucks off the service.
Yeah.
That's their whole business model.
Yeah.
Service, parts. Well, when we design these electric vehicles, we'll design them with parts that'll only work with our electric vehicle. And no, there's contactors that exist. You can go get a gigavac contactor, put that in there. A sawmill has it. Whatever piece of equipment might have that. We use those same bus bars. Then because that's the only way we could build this truck, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I don't have the money to build custom parts. So we source these things from electrical supply stores, people that have these parts. And we show that you could build the truck with these parts. You don't need special engineered parts. The parts were off the shelf, which means if you got to service it and you got to work on it, your electrician that's familiar with those electrical supply stores can go buy those parts in his local town. It's not rocket science to figure this stuff out.
That's amazing. Well, I know Steve will be down there on the weekend filming. I can't wait to see this. At least through video. So again, man, thanks for coming in. That was amazing.
Betcha.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to like and subscribe and be well while you're at it.